They called me many names in Endor: witch, medium, woman of darkness, but they never called me powerless. I knew the secrets people buried, the names they whispered in darkness, the questions they were too afraid to ask the living. Men came to my door when the sun went down, warriors, merchants, even those who wore crowns. They came seeking answers about tomorrow. They came searching for voices from yesterday, and I knew how to make the darkness listen. I could sit alone in a silent room and hear whispers no ordinary ear could hear, voices from places the living feared to enter. People believed I commanded the spirits. Perhaps they were right. Perhaps they only believed what they desperately needed to believe. I had seen men tremble before, proud men, powerful men, men who believed nothing in this world could frighten them. But there was one thing even I feared, a presence I could not command, a voice I could not silence. Then, one night, 3 strangers came to my door. One wore a hood, but beneath that hood was Israel's king. He asked me to summon the dead, to summon the spirit of a prophet.
Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had lamented him and buried him in Ramah, his own city, and Saul had put the mediums and the spiritists out of the land. 1 Samuel 28:3. And when Saul inquired of the Lord did not answer him, either by dreams or by Urim or by the prophets. 1 Samuel 28:6. Samuel was dead. The prophet who had guided Israel through its greatest victories was gone. For decades, his voice had echoed across the land. He had anointed kings, rebuked nations, and spoken the words of God without fear. When Israel was confused, Samuel brought clarity. When kings strayed, Samuel brought correction. When the nation needed direction, Samuel pointed them back to God. But now that voice had fallen silent. News of his death spread from village to village and tribe to tribe. Across the hills of Israel, men and women mourned. Elders bowed their heads. Families gathered in sorrow. The nation had lost more than a prophet. It had lost its spiritual compass. The room where Samuel once sat now stood empty. His chair remained untouched. His staff leaned quietly against the wall. The lamp still burned, but the man who had carried the burden of Israel was gone. Only silence remained, and no one felt that silence more deeply than King Saul. There was a time when Saul had stood strong, a time when he was chosen by God, a time when victory seemed certain and the future looked bright. There was a time when Samuel stood beside him. There was a time when heaven still spoke. But those days belonged to the past. Years of disobedience had left their mark upon the king. One compromise led to another. One act of rebellion opened the door to many more. Slowly, the relationship between Saul and God began to fracture. The king who once walked in confidence now carried the weight of regret. And now Samuel was gone. The one man who had always confronted him with truth would speak no more. Desperate for guidance, Saul searched for answers. He prayed. He waited. He listened. He sought the Lord with all the urgency of a man standing on the edge of disaster. But heaven remained silent. No dream came in the night. No prophet arrived with a message. No answer came through the sacred instruments of the priests. Nothing, only silence. A silence more terrifying than any enemy army. Then the Philistines came. Across the valleys of northern Israel, their forces gathered in overwhelming numbers. Chariots rolled across the plains. Soldiers filled the hills. Campfires stretched across the horizon like an endless sea of fire. Every day their strength increased. Every day the threat grew closer. Every day fear tightened its grip upon the king. From the fortress walls, Saul watched the enemy. Thousands of fires burned beneath the night sky. The sound of distant war drums carried through the darkness. The horizon itself seemed alive with the presence of an army preparing for battle. And for the first time in many years, Saul was afraid. Not merely afraid of defeat, afraid of what would happen when morning came, afraid of facing an enemy without guidance, afraid of fighting a battle without hearing from God. The prophet was dead. God was silent. The enemy was near. And fear was beginning to push Saul toward a decision that would change everything. A forbidden decision. A desperate decision. A decision that would lead him through the darkness of the night, across the hills of Israel, and into the presence of a woman he himself had outlawed. A woman whispered about in fear. A woman hidden in the village of Endor. A woman known throughout the land by a single name. The Witch of Endor.
My lord, I came as fast as I could.
What news from the frontier?
The enemy is closer than we thought. They march on us now.
How many? Thousands. We must act.
The Philistines had returned. Their armies covered the valleys. Their fires filled the hills, and King Saul watched them approach. That night Saul cried out, "Lord, speak to me." But heaven remained silent. No dream came. No prophet answered. Before dawn, scouts arrived with terrible news. "My king, more Philistine forces have arrived. Their numbers continue to grow." Saul sought answers through dreams, prophets, and the sacred Urim, but every door remained closed. Heaven gave him nothing. That night, Saul whispered to his servants, "Find me a woman who speaks with the dead." They stared at him in disbelief. "There is a woman in Endor," one servant finally answered. Saul looked toward the darkness. "Prepare for the journey." Saul removed his crown and royal garments. No armor, no symbols of power. Tonight, Israel's king would travel disguised. Saul and two servants entered the darkness. Philistine patrols surrounded the land. Every shadow could hide an enemy. They crossed the hills beneath the moon. Behind them, Philistine fires burned across the horizon. Ahead waited the forbidden. At last they reached Endor. An isolated house stood in the darkness. Saul stopped before its door. Inside waited the woman. The door opened slowly. An elderly woman raised her lamp and studied the strangers. "Who are you? What do you want?" Saul stepped forward. "Consult a spirit for me." The woman recoiled. "Saul has forbidden this. Why are you setting a trap?" The woman prepared the ritual. Then she asked, "Whom shall I bring up?" Saul answered, "Bring up Samuel." The woman hesitated. Saul swore, "As surely as the Lord lives, no punishment will come upon you." Then the ritual began. Suddenly the woman froze. Her eyes widened. Something had appeared. She whispered, "No, this is not what I expected." She screamed and stumbled backward. "You are Saul. You are the king." Saul stepped forward. "Do not be afraid." Saul stared at her. "Tell me, what do you see?" The woman trembled, staring beyond him into the darkness. "I see a spirit rising from the earth." Saul asked, "What does he look like?" She answered, "An old man wrapped in a robe." Saul knew immediately, Samuel. Then the prophet's voice came from the darkness. "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?" Saul cried, "I am in great distress. The Philistines are fighting me, and God no longer answers me. Tell me what to do." Samuel answered, "Why ask me, since the Lord has departed from you? The kingdom has been torn from your hand and given to David." Then came the final judgment. "Tomorrow, you and your sons will be with me." Saul collapsed. His fate had been sealed. The morning had come. The battle Saul feared could no longer be delayed. Across Mount Gilboa, the armies of Israel prepared for war, while dark clouds gathered above the battlefield. Far across the valley, the Philistines advanced. Their numbers stretched across the horizon. Their chariots thundered forward, and their warriors marched with confidence toward Israel. Then the battle began. Steel crashed against steel. Shields collided. The mountains echoed with the sounds of war as thousands fought for survival. At first, Israel held its ground, but the pressure continued to build. Slowly, the battle lines weakened, and fear began spreading through the ranks. Still, Saul's sons refused to retreat. Jonathan and his brothers fought with courage and determination. But even the bravest warriors could not escape what had already been foretold. Then came the archers. From distant ridges, arrows filled the sky. Death descended upon the battlefield, and the prophecy moved one step closer to fulfillment. Saul was struck. Wounded and exhausted, he struggled to remain standing. The battlefield blurred around him as pain and fear settled heavily upon his heart. Smoke covered Mount Gilboa. Israel was falling. His sons were gone. And as Saul looked across the battlefield, he knew the battle was lost. The words spoken by Samuel returned to him. "Tomorrow, you and your sons will be with me." Now that tomorrow had arrived, alone upon the mountain, Saul made his final choice. The fighting ended. Philistine banners rose above the battlefield. Victory belonged to Israel's enemies, and the kingdom Saul once ruled lay broken beneath the smoke. The battlefield grew silent. The dead remained where they had fallen. The sun descended beyond the mountains as darkness slowly returned to the land. The prophet had spoken. The king had heard, and every word had come to pass. Samuel's prophecy was fulfilled. The reign of Israel's first king had come to an end. The story does not end here. Across history, kings have risen and fallen. Prophets have spoken. Empires have been built and destroyed, and countless stories remain hidden in the shadows of time. If you enjoyed this story, like this video, share it with others, and subscribe for more powerful stories of the men who shaped history. Because the next story may change the way you see the past forever.